Greetings, curious acolytes of the Force, and welcome back to the archives. Throughout our studies of the Force, both light and dark, there are very few abilities in the spectrum that the Sith aren't privy to. In fact, it seems as if the Sith actually have a much more wide array of Force abilities than that of even the Jedi, mostly because they are willing to explore and experiment with the lengths of the Force in order to acquire more power and knowledge. With almost every ability of the light side, there is almost always a dark side version to counter it. Before in our holocron openings, we have talked about how Sith have found ways to answer life after death by binding their spirits to objects, and how they have made up for the dark side's weaknesses by creating abilities such as dark healing. With that said though, today's holocron means something different, as there are yet at least two more light side abilities that the Sith can not only not manage to replicate, but absolutely hate because of the nature of these abilities. Today, my friends, we are going to delve into the two of the most powerful light side abilities that are available for use for the Jedi, those abilities being Force Binding and Force Light. As fascinating as the Sith's overwhelming power can be in the Force, it is certainly enjoyable when we find a few advantages that give Jedi a leg up on their power-hungry counterparts. Before we get into it though, there is a massive sale on the Star Wars merch page for the holiday season. So if you're interested in gifting any Star Wars merch or getting merch for yourself, you can find everything up to 40% off. In addition, if you use code WAVE at checkout, you'll get an additional 15% off your entire order. So my friends, now is the time. But with that out of the way, let us prepare to defend against the forces of the dark side, and let us analyze the two Force abilities that the Sith hate more than anything else. To begin, we will be talking about Force Binding, a power that has recently been introduced into Star Wars canon via the High Republic novels. Force Binding is an act of multiple Jedi coming together in one ceremony to combine their power to mute the powers of a dark side artifact. In other words, it gave its users the ability to contain the influence that a Sith artifact had on its surroundings. This was the method that the Jedi used to safely transport dark side objects from one place of the Jedi Temple to another place, whether that be for additional storage or complete destruction of the object entirely. Artifacts of the dark side and the ancient Sith were extremely important, and we have talked about some of the most dangerous artifacts many times on the channel before. Oftentimes, these artifacts held the spirits of ancient Sith, and their dark influence would warp and corrupt their surroundings or even their wielders. Force Binding completely takes away the essential function of a Sith artifact by putting the powers under bondage and keeping its area of influence limited to only the object itself. Using this power, a few Jedi could ideally even bind the evil spirits of an ancient Sith into a soul artifact, rendering it pretty much useless. We hear a lot about the dark side tainting entire areas, or even planets, or corrupting things like kyber crystals in the bleeding process. It is really interesting to hear that the Jedi art of cleansing these effects using the heal crystal method, or with this ability of Force Binding, came in great use. Of course, binding doesn't exactly cleanse the artifact, only limits its sphere of influence. However, what does actually do this cleansing function would be the next ability, the Force ability that the Sith hate more than any other, Force Light. It is a tragedy that Force Light is not something widely pursued or taught by the Jedi Order, as it could potentially be their secret weapon to defeating the Sith once and for all, if they had actually been known to use it. As the name suggests, Force Light is the pure light side ability for one that actually harnesses the Force in a pure way in order to produce a massive ball of light, typically in their hand or manifesting it somewhere else. The light itself was blinding to all who allied with the darkness, and the entire function of the ability purged the surrounding area of all darkness. It is said that this ability could temporarily sever a Sith's connection to the dark side itself, like how a Force Scream severs the connection from a Jedi to the light side. Force Light could also dispel dark illusions and cleanse people of dark mind control. Furthermore, the ability could also be used to banish Sith spirits themselves. The light essentially made the dark spirits solid to where they could be affected by physical weapons, and their connection to the dark side was significantly weaker. In this way, one could ideally defeat a Sith spirit in the physical realm so long as the Force Light ability was active. In one famous instance of the ability, Jedi Master Arca Jeth used Force Light to purge a planet of dark side energies permitting from Freda Nad's sarcophagus. But this isn't even the most impressive application of the ability. Master Thawne managed to use both Force Light and Force Binding to purge the entire system of Umbria completely of the dark side by trapping all of the dark side spirits that plagued the planet into one single body of water, which he named Lake Natheth. After this, the formerly desolate world began to grow lush green with flora yet again, showing the true, unbridled power of Force Light. Other practitioners of Force Light include Master Yaddle, Nomi's Sunrider, Jacen Solo, as well as Grandmaster Luke Skywalker. Luke had used Force Light when in the battle against the dark side demon known as Abeloth, the wicked creature that Luke subdued in her tentacles and would have completely killed him. However, Luke Skywalker drew upon the compassion he had for the entire galaxy, and most importantly, the love that he had for his family, friends, as well as the Jedi Praxium that he had established as the new Grand Master. All of the sudden, at the moment of his apparent death, his body was wreathed in pure light, burning and banishing the tentacles around him and driving back Abeloth, a Force ability that could combat the very might of Abeloth, the Force Demon. Another rare instance of this happening is when Jacen Solo completed oneness with the Force and was bathed in Force Light while defeating the Supreme Overlord of the Yuuzhan Vong. Earlier, Nomi's Sunrider, one of the former Grandmasters of the Jedi Order, was a master of this ability and used it to dissolve all darkside illusions from around her during the battle, and would often use Force Light in conjunction with her battle meditation, making one of the most powerful Force abilities in all of the lore. Undoubtedly, Force Light is one of the finest abilities ever produced by the Jedi, and like we said earlier, it is really a shame that this ability isn't used more widespread within the Order. But why exactly is this? The problem is that a lightsider has to be pure in their intentions and have a genuine connection with the light side in order to accomplish this feat. Unlike telekinesis, light isn't something that is easily used or mastered. While this fact helps keep the sanctity of the ability intact, I feel that this power is shamefully underutilized and could honestly be the difference maker in a battle against the forces of the dark side or the Sith. And that is why the Sith absolutely hated this power. Sith feed on darkness, and their entire doctrine revolves around the idea that the dark side is completely sovereign within the Force. Just the existence of this ability and the implications of its use flies in the face of everything that the Sith believe in and work hard to attain. Just think, a Sith with unimaginable power and strength could be reduced to nothing in an instant with a single use of this overpowering light side ability. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of these powers? Would you like to see them more used on screen in Star Wars lore, or more in the canon and mythos? And if you were a Jedi, would you go out of your way to pursue acquiring the ability to banish darkness from your mere presence? Let us know your insights down below. And as always, may the Force be with you, and I hope that you have a great day.